on his rise?
They've been saying that it's going to deflate any day now for months, and I think that because it has become a two-person race, and there is such a level of antipathy towards the Clintons among a very vocal wing of the party, my guess would be it's at least going to go on for a couple more months.
Thanks so much for spending time with me to do this crazy little thing.
Okay.
The second biggest political party in Great Britain, the Labour Party, elected a new boss named Jeremy Corbyn in September. Let us ask my British friend Peter how that's working out.
So how are you doing, Peter?
I'm doing pretty well, actually. It's a nice cold afternoon in London.
Tell me about Jeremy Corbyn. When I was learning about this several months ago, like the narrative about him was that he was like this sort of horrible radical guy that his own party sort of hated. And so now it's like several months later, and how has that storyline played out? Would you say that's still generally true?
Yeah, if you ask me now, ask a lot of people on the moderate left, I think they would probably repeat that line, that he's a horrible radical who most of his parliamentary party hates. This is the key thing. The parliamentary party, the Parliamentary Labour Party, or the caucus, they don't like him.
Has this played out in any particular way?
I would still say it's in a kind of phony war stage where neither side really seems strong enough to really impose their will on the direction of the Labour Party. So I don't think Corbyn's strong enough really to flex his muscles and kick people out of the shadow cabinet. But then those who are plotting against him, and there are people plotting against him, there definitely are. They don't seem strong enough to kind of mount any kind of challenge anytime soon. I would say it's less House of Cards and more kind of OK Magazine, really. It gets played out a lot, usually when a big issue comes up. So, for example, the Syria vote on whether Britain should bomb Syria or take military action in Syria against ISIS or Daesh. Then the initial line was Corbyn wanted the official Labour Party line to be against military action in Syria, and that he was prepared to whip his MPs to do that. The majority of his MPs and the majority of his shadow cabinet wanted to vote in favour of military action, and so they wanted a free vote. So what you ended up seeing was this kind of he said, she said kind of debacle in the press, where everyone was spinning, everyone was leaking. There didn't seem to be any control like you would normally see with an organised party. Corbyn had to give a free vote, and so you had this really weird situation where you had the party leader standing up and saying that he would be voting against military action, and then the majority of his shadow cabinet standing up one by one, basically in front of him at the dispatch box, saying that they would be voting for military action. That was definitely the highest moment of the Corbyn leadership drama.
If you had to predict the future, Peter, would you say that you think that Corbyn will be leading the Labour Party at the time of the next British general election?
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, because I don't think his plotters will be able to overturn the sheer will of the party members, not the MPs, the party members, and also the unions who bankroll the Labour Party, and they both want Corbyn. And I think there'd have to be multiple disasters, in the local elections and in Scotland and in Wales for Corbyn to go.
And do you buy into this idea that he would be a disaster as a general election candidate?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do. And the British electorate want stability. They want, a centrist candidate. They don't want anyone too far to the right. They don't want anyone too far to the left. They won't vote for Corbyn because of, it looks like chaos. It may not be chaos from where he's standing from, but from the average kind of Mondeo man or kind of Dagenham woman, the average voter, it looks like chaos. It's currently what they're seeing in opposition is chaos. So God knows what they would be like in government.
All right, Peter. Well, that's a pretty good analysis, man. So thanks so much for that.
No problem.
Last September also saw the fall of Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott and his replacement with Malcolm Turnbull. I don't have an actual Australian to talk to about this one, but I do have my friend Matthew, who is going to school there.
Hello.
Hello, Matthew.
How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing well. How is the weather in Australia?
It has begun to cool down from an absolutely scorching summer that regularly had a 35-degree mark with like 80% humidity, which was just the hell.
You were there when old man Abbott was in power. Did it surprise you when he got booted?
No, it didn't surprise me. And like I hang out actually in a generally very Canadian little community of expats down here who are all in school together. But from the Australians who are also at the university that I see through other things. Yeah, there was a general sense that he wasn't what people had voted for. Like I think people voted for him, people voted for the Liberals because they were tired of Labour and the endless switching back and forth and the fighting and the backbiting between Kevin Rudd and Julie Gillard. And Tony Abbott was supposed to just change that and be this breath of fresh air, but he ended up being kind of this very resented, very negatively viewed guy.
What's your sense of the new guy, of Turnbull? How do you think he's sort of generally perceived?
He's generally perceived as more moderate, as a more, to put it more bizarrely, a liberal of the liberals.
Yeah.
Certainly more progressive than Tony Abbott was. He entered politics through the Liberal Party, but as more of a good government rather than like a hardline conservative type person. His new deputy PM, who you may know from when he threatened to kill Johnny Depp's dogs, Barnaby Joyce.
What?
Has said that there's, Barnaby Joyce was the agriculture minister under Tony Abbott. And at one point, Johnny Depp brought his dogs to the city in which I am currently living, the Gold Coast. And he didn't take them through the very stringent Australian quarantine provisions. And so Barnaby Joyce went on TV and announced that in 24 hours, or in 48 hours or something like that, the dogs have to be out of Australia or he would come and destroy them. Johnny Depp's dogs are safe. They left Australia, and Barnaby Joyce is now the Deputy Prime Minister.
Oh boy. What do you generally think of Australian politics versus Canadian politics?
I find Australian politics to seem a lot more unstable and a little less partisan. There's much more deal-making and the actual interpersonal politics than in Canada. It's more representative. They have a very strange voting system where you find out several days later whether or not someone has actually won their seat.
Yeah.
And the ballot pages are like, 5 pages long.
Do you think that the Australian people are more or less politically engaged than we are in Canada?
I would say that there's a certain level of awareness and engagement here that comes from just all being required to vote.
Oh yeah.
Because voting is mandatory here.
Well, Matthew, thank you for playing along with my stupid little thing that I'm doing.
Absolutely, I'm happy to help.
When we last left New Zealand, they were on the brink of having a vote to decide what should be on their national flag. To see where that stands, we will talk to my Kiwi friend, Lewis.
Hello, Lewis.
How's it going?
And not too bad. How's the weather over there?
Well, it's summer at the moment. It's quite hot. It's about 30 degrees Celsius where I am.
I wanted to talk to you about the flag situation. The last time I was following this story was in September, several months ago. And I'm just sort of curious, where exactly, I know nothing, where exactly is the story right now?
So we're into the last final hall of the debate. There's basically 4 weeks to go before voting opens. It's a postal vote and a runoff between the alternative that was chosen at the end of last year and the current flag.
So what exactly is your position in the campaign?
So officially I'm campaign chairman.
How is it looking?
Not great. The last poll that we did, it's still 56% opposed, 36% in favour. Because it's a postal referendum, there's a big question over, where the turnout will go. According to our polling, the people who are actually most likely to turn out to vote are those who are in favour of change. So it could actually be very close.
How much politics is infused in this? To what extent has this become a sort of partisan issue?
Oh, it's hugely partisan, which is actually the really frustrating part from my perspective. Because it's been driven by a Conservative government, the opposition basically won't touch the issue, which is incredible because traditionally it's been a Labour sort of issue. I mean, the very first person to raise this was actually a Labour Prime Minister back in the 60s.
If I was talking to a left-wing person, how would they sort of spin what's going on?
Oh, they would say probably that the issue is just a pet project for the Prime Minister. It's just about his legacy. The process hasn't been the right one. They should have asked up front, should it be, yes, no to change, all these sorts of things, which are really just